I think if anybody is a sort of a free thinker, they're going to have some ideas that are going to be considered controversial by a lot of the people who are around them. One of mine is the idea of people, quote, fighting in my behalf or doing things in my behalf. I'm not saying that there's no instance where that's a reasonable or proper thing, but I will tell you that largely I don't consider that to be a thing. That's what I'm going to talk about on the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I'm your host, by the way. I'm Kurt, and today is Sunday, the 10th of October of 2021. Welcome to everyone who's here on Rumble on the podcast and on YouTube. Remember, Rumble is my preferred platform. But I'm going to talk on the subject today that I've entitled the piece "In My Behalf." Let me go ahead and get through my notes real quick, and hopefully this will give you some idea exactly what I'm talking about. It's important to realize respect and agreement don't always work together. I respect, for example, people who choose what they consider to be a life of service in the military or the police or other pursuits. By the way, for some of them, I not only respect them, but I sort of agree with what they're doing. So firemen and ambulance personnel and doctors and so forth, I definitely agree. That said, particularly where the military is concerned, you can bet I don't agree. One of the most important considerations is that tendency to say, I do what I do so you don't have to. I get the logic, and it's certainly fair to say such people make life a great deal easier. Here's the infamous line, thing. Here's the thing. There's a saying, I imagine it is relatively old, not sure. I find it attributed to a G. Michael Hopf. It is, hard times make strong men make easy times make weak men make hard times. I imagine at least the origin of the idea can be traced back to the distant past. Maybe not the expression itself. Maybe Mr. Hopf was the first to say it. I couldn't answer that. Like it or not, standing in front of people may protect them for a time. In the end, though, there's a good chance they'll be steamrollered. What's worse is the chances are good that won't come from the outside, but from within. I started my notes for this video with a couple of simple statements. I know you think protecting me from violence with your violence, that you're protecting me from violence with your violence, and maybe you even are. Just remember this, you can say you're shooting children in my behalf, but if I never asked nor desired you to do that, it's no more the case. Now, let's be clear. Am I saying I think military people are shooting children in my behalf? No, I'm saying if a person says that they're doing that in my behalf, it doesn't mean that it's something I'm going to accept or allow for. I'm not saying that military members are going around shooting children in my behalf and saying that they're doing so. More importantly, there's a serious question just how beneficial what you're doing is in the long run. I appreciate your bravery, your intent towards selflessness, but I question the efficacy of your actions, particularly in the course of time. You can claim to be acting in violence or threatening manner in my behalf, but have you asked me if that's what I want? If you haven't, maybe you should question whether or not you are in fact acting in my behalf. Because look, I was a member of the military, and I became a Christian. And one of the things that happened as a result of my becoming a Christian was I realized that I did not belong in the military. Now, I know there's a statement to the effect that if you're a Christian or if you're in the military and you become a Christian, you should probably stay in the military. I recognize that. But I also recognize that there are times when conscience will not allow you to do the thing that you're doing. When I left the military, it was my choice, and people basically sort of drummed me out. It's not exactly how it worked. We sort of came to a conclusion between us. It was time for me to go, and they let me do exactly that. The point is, though, I came to the conclusion initially I didn't belong, and then I used a few things that were happening to make it so that it was easier for them to get me out, not with the idea that I was going to compromise my principles on that, but with the idea that they needed a way to deal with things, and I gave them to them. I'm not in favor of being in the military. I'm not in favor of people supposedly protecting me. If you feel like you need to, quote, protect and serve your country, I get it. And I'm not telling you can't do that. But what I am telling you is don't assume that just because you decided that you are going to protect and serve and so forth and all the fun stuff that you're doing, that what you're actually doing is doing that in my behalf. That's what I'm trying to tell you. You want to do it for your sake? You want to do it for your children's sake or whatever? You want to say that you're doing it for their sake? I know, here's the thing, right? If somebody came after my children and I had a gun in my hand and I realized that they weren't going to stop until my children were dead, chances are pretty good, as little as I like the idea, that person would end up dying. That's what would happen. I'm sorry to say it. At least being incapacitated, at least being taken to a position where they couldn't affect my children badly or whatever. That's the least I would do. So if you say you joined the military because you have children and you want for your children to be safe, if you say you joined the police department because you have children and you want for your children to be safe, I certainly cannot fault you that. And I'm not trying to. All I'm trying to do is say, for those people who are saying, oh, I'm doing this in your behalf, I'm doing this for you, I get you. But I didn't ask, and I don't want you to. If you decide it's something you need to do for you, I get it. I'm not telling you don't. I'm not telling you do it either, by the way. If you decide that you can't in good conscience continue to do it, I know that the military is going to make it hard for you to leave or whatever. From my perspective, you should be able to leave, you should be able to go, and that should be that. You shouldn't have to worry about that anymore. But my point here, my simple point is, when you say, oh, I'm doing this for you, and you are killing children, like I say, and I'm not saying, again, people in the military, people in the police force are intentionally killing children, or even unintentionally, mostly. I think they're pretty careful about that, and I think they do things pretty safely. But the point is, if you come and say to me that you're doing that in my behalf, or stealing things for me, or hurting people for me that have done nobody harm or whatever, you need to know that I'm not going to support you in that. In the same sort of way, what I'm saying is, if you're in the military, if you're in the police force, and you think you're doing that for me, if you're not doing it for you, if you're not doing it for your children, for your family, I don't think you should be probably doing that. Because if you're doing it for me, if nothing else, you're making soft people. You're making people who can't handle hard times. That's just reality, and that may include me. I don't think so. I think it will be hard, but that's the point of hard times, isn't it? My point here, though, is to say, please don't go into the military, go into the police in order to protect me. First of all, let me tell you something. As a police officer, I stay out of situations. I am not a police officer. I say for you as a police officer, I stay out of situations mostly where there's any chance of my getting in trouble, being hurt, or whatever. And by the time you come into a situation, most of the time, it's too late, right? Where my house has been broken into, and it's been a long time now, but where my house was broken into, no police officer was in my neighborhood until somebody had already broken into the house and was at the very least driving off with somebody calling the police as an afterthought. So please don't tell me that you're doing your policing job on my behalf. Okay, you say you're putting criminals in jail and so forth. I get it. But the thing about it is, when you put criminals in jail, I'm going to estimate about 30 to 40% of the time you end up with better criminals. You do not end up with people who are better people as a result of you putting them in jail. So the chances are, if you don't keep them in jail, they're never going to become meaningful parts of society as a result of what happened to them in prison, except realizing that maybe they don't want to go back, which I suppose you could argue is one thing that's beneficial about the prison system. But for the most part, what it tends to do is make better criminals. And by the way, it also tends to make people who have nowhere to go because they have records and so forth. So this is what I want to get across to you. If you feel like you need to serve the country, if you feel like you need to serve for your children, if you feel like you need to go into the police force, I get it, and I'm not telling you don't do it. But I am telling you, please don't say you're doing it in my behalf. That's what I'm trying to get across today. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up. This is the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I'm your host. I'm Kurt, and today is Saturday, the 10th of October of 2021. Thank you for everyone. Oh, tomorrow will be then Monday, the 11th of October of 2021. Today being the beginning of the Christian week. Tomorrow being the beginning of the work week for most people. Thank you for having come aboard on Rumble, on the podcast on YouTube. Try not to use a board, so I guess I'm slipping up a little on that these days. Remember that Rumble is my preferred platform. You can give me a plus or a boxing glove as a positive feedback on Rumble. You can give me a minus as a negative feedback there. You can give me a thumbs up or a like on YouTube as a positive feedback. You can give me a thumbs down or a dislike as a negative feedback on YouTube as well. Remember that you can give me a comment on just about any platform, and I will do my best to make sure that I look at your comments and consider them, and hopefully you'll tell me some things that I don't know or am not considering or whatever. That's definitely welcome in my mind. Today's subject has been in my behalf, and tomorrow we're going to talk about an impossible duo. And this has to do with something that somebody tried to do in terms of combining two words that just cannot be combined because the things they represent are not things that can be put together. Hope you're having a good day today. Hope everything is going well for you, and hopefully we will see you on tomorrow's edition of the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. The speaker on this edition of the Daily Summation is Kurt Schubert. This video was recorded on Sunday, the 10th of October of 2021. The Daily Summation is created for Kurt's Religion and Politics. Thanks for watching this edition of the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I hope you found it entertaining or instructional, or maybe both. If you want to see more from me, you can go to blogs.kpschubert.com. That's blogs.kpschubert.com. I am on Twitter, Parler, and Minds.com. My handle on each of those is @kpschubert. That's @kpschubert. I have a Rumble and a YouTube channel. They are the Kurt's Religion and Politics channels on Rumble and YouTube. I have a Facebook page. The Facebook page is Kurt's Religion and Politics as well. I am on Patreon. If you want to support me, that's one of the better places you can do that. And you will find me at Kurt's Religion and Politics on Patreon. I have a podcast. The podcast is podcasts with an S, .kpschubert.com. That's podcasts.kpschubert.com. I think you should be able to find me with relative ease on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify as well. The best way I find to do that is to look for Kurt's Religion and Politics. You can try to use the Daily Summation. I find that it doesn't work as well as a general rule, but you can always try that. I'm glad to have you aboard today, and hopefully we will see you again tomorrow.